Hey guys, so I want to make a feedback video for the Path of Exile 2 Endgame, going over all my thoughts, everything that I think should be changed, what I like about it, all of that. This is from a pure softcore trade perspective. A lot of people give their feedback, but it's also like soul self-found or hardcore. I want to give my feedback as a pure softcore trade perspective. You know, I've played softcore a lot. If you watch my stream, I play all the time. I probably have made like over 10 years total this league. I play 298 characters, a 96 character. Yeah, I've played this game a lot. I really enjoyed it, but there are some things that really need to be changed, especially in 0.2, because if it's not changed, it's going to feel bad playing the same endgame again. Because in my opinion, just to say it outright, this is the worst endgame Path of Exile has ever had since I've been playing, and I've been playing since Breach League patch 2.5. I personally have not played a worse endgame. With that said, I still had a lot of fun, obviously, but yeah, a lot of this stuff needs to be changed, and more importantly, needs to be changed fast. Hopefully, like not in a year, hopefully next patch. First, let's just talk about the good. The good, you can self-sustain all of your juice. So outside of distills, you can self-sustain your tablets. I self-sustain all my 20% or 15 to 20% quant breach tablets, no issues. I never traded for these, that's very nice. You self-sustain all your maps, also very nice. There's no hassle, no trading, no bulk buying. It's really annoying sometimes in Path of Exile 1 when that is the meta. In Path of Exile 2, you can self-sustain all your maps, self-sustain all your exalts to roll your maps, and you can self-sustain all your tablets. That is nice. Everything but distills, you can self-sustain, and you can just buy these on Alva, so it's not a big deal. Second thing is, I pretty much really enjoyed the gear progression in a softcore trade perspective. I know in Soul Self-Found it's not as good, but in softcore trade it was quite fun gearing up. I feel like at start I found some nice meaningful upgrades and I traded, also traded with other people, like good rares I find, buy their rares, and it's like, it feels nice to pick up rares, they have value, I can sell them, I can buy other good rares. It's very refreshing coming from Path of Exile 1 where you just never pick up a rare item ever. I personally don't like that. I do like picking up rares, but there is a limit to how much I should be picking up, of course. But yeah, I do like the softcore gear progression. It is nice, it is fun. The crafting honestly does need a lot of work, which I'm not really going to touch in this video. But yeah, the softcore trade progression is nice. I do enjoy it, but obviously it can be improved. So for endgame, that is pretty much the end of my good. The next is just all going to be, I guess, rants or what I don't like about it, all of that. So the first thing I really want to talk about for a high-end softcore juicing perspective is map management is absolutely terrible in this game, and I do not understand why, because they made it strictly worse than that of Path of Exile 1. I'm still really confused of how they made it worse. And what do I mean by this? So for example, just distilling your maps requires 5 clicks. You know, 1 click for distill, then 3 more for this, and then 1 more to put it in, and then another click, actually 6 clicks, to distill a single map. And they have to take it out and do it all over again for the next map. This is absolutely terrible, and I'm not sure why this is worse. In Path of Exile 1, essentially all you do, you click to distill, and you click the map, and that's it. In Path of Exile 2, it's way more work, it's way more tedious, and it's way more clicks. I'm not sure why they made it worse when we had a perfectly working system in Path of Exile 1. So that's the first thing. Next is the Reforge bench. Once again, they made this worse than what it was in Path of Exile 1. Not sure why. If you are juicing your maps, you will have to 3-to-1 your tablets, because the only tablets that are worth running are the quant tablets. And the tablet is not quant, you have to go to Reforge bench and 3-to-1. If you don't 3-to-1, you won't really sustain your tablets. It just won't happen. You do have to 3-to-1 if you want to sustain. So you'll roll all your maps, you know, transmute, aug, and it's like, okay, now I have quant, go Reforge bench, reforge. But you do this every single time to get 1 new tablet. It's 3 reforge per 1 new tablet. Once again, it's like 5 clicks, right? So it's like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's so many clicks to do a simple action that was extremely fast and easy to do in Path of Exile 1 that I'm not sure why it was changed. It's just a lot more tedious than Path of Exile 2. Once again, I'm not sure why they made it worse. I do understand the Reforge bench makes it easier for new players to understand how this works, but why can't we have both? Why can't we have the Reforge bench and the vendor recipe that exists in Path of Exile 1? Once again, if you're new, if you don't know what this is, in Path of Exile 1, you could essentially, you know, quote unquote, reforge any item by just putting in a trade window, and it'll give you 1 back, 3-to-1. The same exact system exists in Path of Exile 1, but you just use a trade window. And the reason why this is superior is that you can fill up an entire trade window and 3-to-1, like, you know, 40 items at a time. So it's not that tedious and it's really fast. But yeah, but in Path of Exile 2, it is just worse. So the next thing on map management I want to talk about is how many maps you have to pick up and tablets. Something that's also not an issue in Path of Exile 1. So what do I mean by this? So I have dozens and dozens of quad tabs. I had to buy so many quad tabs in Path of Exile 2. I think I brought like 12 total because you had to pick up so many maps and tablets if you want to be efficient and juice maps. It's really tedious and quite annoying. So the reason why I had to pick up every single map is because in this game, there's only certain prefixes that are actually worth running. Some examples here, like quant, rarity, increase, rare monsters, right? Those are kind of the only prefixes that are ever worth running. And if it doesn't have those prefixes, it's useless. But you don't know if a map has those prefixes until you pick it up and ID it. And of course, you're not going to ID it until you're in your hideout. So you end up with all these dumb tabs of maps that you just do not run, and you do want to vendor eventually. But of course, taking the maps out and vendor them is so tedious that I just rather buy another quad tab, to be honest. And if you're wondering why is the issue in Path of Exile 2 and not Path of Exile 1, Path of Exile 1 you have tier 17s, which are a rare exclusive drop, so you can never really get this many in the first place, so it's not an issue. If you're doing tier 16s, which is equivalent to tier 15s in this game, is you only really run corrupted maps in high end, and they only drop if you use specific scarabs, which is tablets in this game. So, I mean, the TLDR is Path of Exile 1, you only drop good maps when you want to join good maps, and if you aren't dropping good maps, you can turn them off on your loot filter. It's kind of hard to explain if you haven't played PoE 1, but it's not an issue in Path of Exile 1 because of how they designed the game. The tier 17s are rare, so they can never fill up your inventory or your stash tabs, and the tier 15s that you do run are always corrupted, and you don't drop infinite corrupted maps unless you're farmed for it, so once again, it's not an issue. And also in Path of Exile 1, we have stuff called scarabs, which is equal to that of the tablets. And scarabs stack in PoE 1, but these tablets don't stack in PoE 2. The issue with that is, once again, they fill up your tabs because you have to pick up every single tablet to do what I showed you earlier, where you have to 3-to-1 for quant maps, and they don't have quant, you 3-to-1 again. The next annoying thing about like map management and map rolling is the limit rate. And this exists for everything. I'm not sure why it exists, but in Path of Exile 2, when you try exalted maps, you get a limited rate, where eventually it just rates you and you can only exalt like once every second, and this vastly slows down your map rolling. You actually hit it quite fast when rolling maps. I'll probably hit it in a second. Yeah, I hit the rate limit now, and now you can see I'm exalted way slower. And I don't know why the game rate limits you like this. It's makes map rolling way more tedious and way slower. Once again, this rate limit mechanic was not in Path of Exile 1, so I'm not sure why it's in Path of Exile 2. It's only really annoying for like, of course, like high-end map farmers, but I don't see why it exists. And this exists for everything. If you try to exalt a bunch of jewels, you try to val a bunch of items in a row, whatever it is, right? You will get rate limited, and it slows you down to like 1 exalt per second, which makes it very tedious and very annoying when rolling all your maps, because you do want to exalt all your maps to 6 modifiers. Next topic, let's move on to towers. So I am not a tower fan. I don't really know anyone that is, but towers are awful. Towers, in my opinion, need to go, and they need to go in the first patch 0.2, because this is the one thing that makes me not want to play the game right now. Out of everything in the game, if towers was completely reworked or just removed tomorrow, I would log back in and play. But right now, I don't want to log in because of towers. They're just not fun to do. So why aren't towers fun to do? So the first reason is towers can never be good. So you can make the best layouts in towers, but they can never actually be good because you can never actually juice them, right? You're running the tower to put the tablet in, which means the tower itself doesn't have that tablet, which means it doesn't have the juice. On top of that, you can't put lead mechanics in the tower, so you can't put your breach in there, your ritual in there, your deli in there, whatever, right? The most you can do is instilled maps, which is like okay for splinters. But yeah, so you can never actually juice your towers, and if you could put breach on there, they can never actually be that good because you're running them for the tablet and they don't have the tablet in them yet, right? Makes sense. Another reason why towers aren't fun to run is because the way you have to ultimately path towards some, so you have to run all these bad maps like the auguries, the seepage, or the Val factories, whatever, right? You know all the bad maps. You have to run all these bad maps to the tower because you don't want to run your good maps like, maybe like Bloom and Field or Decay. You don't want to run the good maps because you want these other bonuses. So you'll go through these bad maps, go to the tower, and then put your tablet in so your good maps have the effects. Which means, half the time you're playing the game, you're essentially running bad, awful maps that you just do not want to touch. This does go into just having so many bad maps in the game, which is an issue in itself. Towers really amplify this issue. If towers just didn't exist and you could always just run the next good map, you could probably avoid all the bad maps in the game. You could probably avoid every single augury in the game, but you can't right now because you want to go through the auguries to reach the tower. And another issue with towers is also like the fog of war. So the one thing with towers is you don't really know what's over here. The reason why that's the issue is that tower spawns are essentially random and you don't know what maps are here. So if I were to go to this spot right here, because it's like, oh wow, there's like some towers over here, some 3 towers over here, maybe a good overlap. So I'm hoping, okay, there's some good maps right here. I could spend like 10 maps traveling over here and then ends up all these maps are like terrible, or there's just like a massive river coming through, then all the time I spent traveling over here, which is completely wasted. It's another issue with towers where you just don't know when going to a new spot if the area is good. And if the area is bad, you just wasted like 10 maps traveling there. It feels incredibly awful. You just wasted so much time for essentially no gain. Then you have to go to a new area and you gotta hope, okay, maybe this area is gonna be good now, right? You know, at the end of the day, essentially what I'm saying, it's just not fun. Towers are just not fun. They need to be removed or massively reworked in some way. And I really hope that's coming in 0.2, because personally for me, this is the sole reason why I just don't want to play right now. Towers just aren't fun. And then also talk about map layouts real quick. But yeah, obviously, I do not know why we have these terrible maps in the game. Having terrible maps in the game is fine in Exile 1 because you never have to run it, or you run it only once. For example, I hate cells in Exile 1. Exile 1 cells is, I guess, like equal to that of Valve Factory for me. They're both really terrible in my opinion, but you only want cells once in Exile 1, only once, and then you never have to run it a single time again unless you want to. But in PoE 2, well, guess what? You're going to run a Valve Factory multiple times, whether you like it or not. And that's the issue. If you're going to have these essentially quote-unquote mandatory maps to run, you have to make sure every single map in the game is fun and enjoyable to run. You cannot have bad maps. If you have bad maps and they're mandatory to run, guess what? People are going to get burned down and they're going to quit. I've definitely seen that a lot of happen. I've seen a lot of people say that. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just done with Argon, done with Mire, I'm just logging out. But then even on the good maps or the semi-good maps, it goes back to the issue of backtracking. Backtracking is still a real issue in this game. The objective to clear rares is just not it. I'm not sure what else they could do, but I still have plenty of times where I have to backtrack for rares and the checkpoint doesn't even help. I'll have a checkpoint to start in the beginning of the map and the rare will be like in the middle. So it does nothing. I have to go all the way back and backtrack the entire map. And unless you're playing a fast build like my Temporalis build, you know, it's really, really slow to backtrack. If you're like a 20%, 15% movement speed build and you're backtracking the whole time, it feels absolutely terrible. They really got to fix backtracking. The checkpoints do not help, and the checkpoints honestly just should be a wake-up call. If we need checkpointed maps, then there is something horribly wrong with the current design of the current maps. They have to be reworked in some form or fashion, or just change the objective. But either way, something really needs to change because backtracking in RPGs for a map should just not be a thing. The next topic I want to talk about is trade-in. So I gotta say, as a veteran Path of Exile 1 player, trade-in has never been this bad ever in the history of game since I've played. Once again, I've been playing since 2016, roughly 9 years now, and I've had more scam attempts in Path of Exile 2 than I ever had in all of my Path of Exile 1 experience combined. People have attempted to scam me at least over a dozen times now, like 20 plus times, and I don't think I've ever been attempted to scam 20 times in PoE 1. It is absolutely insane how many scammers there are. And also the offer meta. Offered items and bargain for items is fine. What's not fine is that when you invite someone, they come to your hideout and then mid-trade, they offer like 5 divines lower. That is just trash. Of course, it's player behavior that's trash. It is part of the trade system and it's something we're going to deal with unless they change something. I do think the trading system is just outdated. I was an advocator for no auction house for a very, very long time, but Path of Exile 2 essentially now makes me advocate for an auction house. And they did promise a gold auction house back in like, I think March last year. Trading is just horrendous in Path of Exile 2. It's extremely outdated. The player base is too large for this type of trading system now. There's way too many scammers, terrible trading practices people do. It's just not fun and leads to overall worse experience, especially for newer players. The next thing I want to talk about real quick is loot. So mostly tiered loot. So tier rares really don't feel meaningful in the game. I really feel like every tier 5 you pick up should be extremely exciting and something that could be worth a ton. But currently it's not. Tier 5s just aren't exciting whatsoever. I don't really care if I pick up a tier loot or not because it feels like the same. Personally, I wouldn't mind if they made tiered loot a lot more rare, but also made them a lot more meaningful. I just want to be excited to pick up the max tier. Or maybe just add more tier onto loot, like tier 6, tier 7, or tier 8 items. Either way, when I pick up a max tiered item, I should be excited and I should like want to ID and like, oh man, this might be worth a lot. Currently, it's not like that. You pick up tier 5, it's like, okay, I expect it to be trash, and yeah, it is trash like every single time. I really like the tier loot system, has a lot of potential. It just needs some improvements to make it feel more meaningful. And one more thing on the tiered loot, please let us filter out non-tier rares. Currently in loot filter options, you cannot filter out non-tier rares, which means when you're killing like a bunch of monsters, you see all these garbage rares on the ground, but you can't hide them because you always want to pick up your tiered loot. So yeah, please let us filter out tiered rares, that would be nice. Next thing I want to talk about is lead mechanics. So overall, league mechanics, I do like to start at what they have right now, but it does vastly need to be improved upon, which I do think they will do, but I also wanted to mention it. So Breach right now is pretty much the only kill monsters get loot league mechanic, and it's definitely the reason why it's the most popular. Of course, it is very good as well, but Ritual is probably like more profitable, and I feel like more people do Breach because it's just more fun. You know, ARPG, kill monsters get loot, that is like the core aspect, and it usually is the most fun part of any RPG, but there's a lack of league mechanics that support that. You have Expedition, which is like for the currencies, Delirium, which is extra monsters, but you just add on top of your map, so it's not really a league mechanic by itself, and then Ritual, which you do kill monsters, but once again, it's for the rewards. I really hope they do add more league mechanics that just kill monsters to get loot, maybe add Beyond onto the Atlas tree so you can spec into it and Beyond like every single map, maybe add in Legion, I don't know, just other league mechanics like that, where we can just spawn more monsters in our map to get loot and not have to focus on like reward vendors like Virtual Expedition would really be nice. And two more things in league mechanics I want to talk about real quick is both shrines and strongboxes. So first things first is, why do shrines have downsides? This is one thing I don't really understand. Shrines have a downside. You can convert every item to gold and you can convert every item to corrupted. These are both horrendous. Obviously, converting every item to gold is just bad. You don't really need that much gold in this game, and converting your rares and uniques into gold is definitely not ideal. Remove these downside shrines. They don't, once again, this does not exist in Path of Exile 1, so why does it exist in Path of Exile 2? It's just a downgrade. You should pick up every single shrine. It's like, oh yeah, it's a shrine there, let me go pick it up. Nice little player buff, right? But in Path of Exile 2, you have to be careful which shrines you pick up, because if you pick up, you know, convert all items to gold, you just end up with a massive downside. And sure, you can just right click it off, but you shouldn't have to think about that, is what I'm saying. You should just be able to pick up any shrine, have to not worry about which one it is, and it's just a nice passive buff. I really do think the corruption shrine and the convert gold shrine should be removed for now. And then on strongboxes real quick, strongboxes even with the buff are still really useless. The buff was nice and made them really fast to do, but they honestly don't really drop anything still. Yeah, strongboxes need a buff. Also, an Atlas tree real quick. The Atlas tree is quite boring. Now, this is something Mark admitted in an interview, and he would say he would change, so that's fine there. I won't go over it too much, but yeah, the Atlas tree is just boring. Essentially, what it boils down to is just more loot. Every single small node is just more loot. There's nothing really interested or intriguing here. And I also would like the Atlas tree for the meta league mechanics also improved. There really isn't that much all here. These trees should probably be like double the size, double the points, and give you like more options to more customizable of what you want to do. And I'm sure they will improve this, but I just wanted to mention it. One last thing I want to mention real quick is this lack of quality of life that's in Path of Exile 1, but it's not in Path of Exile 2. Something like control right click is not in this game, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you know, play PoE1, if you control right click on a currency item, it'll fill your entire inventory with that currency item. And then same deal to put it back in. If I control right a exalted orb in Path of Exile 1, it'll put all these exalts in my stash. So it's one button click for like all in or all out. And for some reason, this is not in the game. Once again, I'm not sure why we're going back on quality of life. You know, if anything, Path of Exile 2 should have more quality of life. It should be in the game. Maybe they forgot of something, so that's why I didn't want to mention it. And then other small stuff, you know, stuff like Divines being stacks of 10, not stacks of 20. Once again, not sure why they went back on this. It should just be stacks of 20. I mean, mirrors themselves are already more than the inventory is worth. So that's pretty much the whole video on everything I like about the game and everything I don't like. Some stuff I feel like really needs to be fixed as soon as possible. I really hope towers are massively reworked or just flat out removed in 0.2, because currently towers are the biggest burnout for me. I know it is for a lot of people as well. It's just not it. It needs to be improved on or just removed. Overall, the game is really fun. Towers are bad, and there's definitely some small stuff like map management, loot, trade-in, all of that I do hope is fixed. It is early access or beta, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I really do hope towers are fixed in their first patch. If you have any feedback for yourself or your opinions about Exile 2, leave in the comments below. I'm curious to what other people think or if you agree or disagree with me. But yeah, that's about it.